Okay.
We are good.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. Today we'll talk about how to get your research published. And basically it will be more about some mistakes or some things that we don't give much attention while we are preparing our manuscript, which result in reducing the probability of the acceptance. First, a little bit about myself. My background is genetics, so I graduated from the genetics department at another university about 25 years ago. Then I studied IT. Before I moved to Japan, where I got my master's and my PhD in computational systems biology. So my master's was 100% dry, so I didn't do experiments in my master's. It was all in silico work. While my PhD was 30-70, so 30% I was doing experiments and 70% I was doing computational work. The output of the PhD was 100% dry, 100% bioinformatics. And after my PhD, I'm working only on the computers, and I stopped working in the lab. Although this was like after my PhD, I joined the School of Pharmacy at Kyoto University in Japan. Then I moved to Canada, where I joined the School of Medicine at the University of Toronto for 4 years. Before I moved to a startup business with one of the most successful Canadian startups, Benchside. Then I moved to Singapore, where I joined the Bioinformatics Institute for 3 years, and I'm back in Canada recently. From 2021, I was appointed as an adjunct professor at the Department of Computer Science at Lكلبة, and I'm still with Lكلبة. Relevant to the topic of today, so I think I published about 70 publications. Some of them are in high impact journals, if you can say, and this was part of some of the large scale projects which I worked in. And I hope today I will share some experience with you. We have about 80 slides, so some slides will go through them fast, and some will need to spend some time. If I'm speaking too fast, please ask me to slow down, and we will have a break after 40 minutes. In this break, there will be also a chance for anyone to ask questions during the break. I will be here. Then we'll have 40 more minutes, then about half an hour for question and answer at the end of the session. I assume since you are graduate students, so I assume you guys are reading papers regularly. So the sections of the papers should be clear for all of us. But just to make sure that we are in the same page and for just organization purpose, we'll see this slide many times during the session. For a standard research article, we have a title page where we have the title and the abstract of the paper, plus the author names and the affiliations. Then the introduction section, then the material and methods, which can be either in after the introduction or at the end of the manuscript before the references, but it's there anyways. Then we have the results and discussion section, or two sections. They can be combined or two independent sections based on your preference or based on the requirement by the journal. And in any publication, or also in your thesis, you will have illustrations, mostly in the form of tables and figures. And now, because papers are online, so sometimes we see multimedia in different forms of multimedia. At the end of the manuscript, we see the conclusion. After that, there are a few other sections. The most important are the acknowledgement and the references. For a standard title page, you can see these kind of components, which are so important, as we will go through them one by one in a few minutes. So we have the title. Give me a second. So we have the title on the top of the page, then the author names, their affiliations, the abstract, the keywords, which is important for the search engines and for the classification of the papers, then the introduction section. And we have another things that are less important, but and sometimes they also change from one journal to another, such as the editor name, who edited this paper. For more transparency now, you can see the editor's name and also the reviewer's name based on their preference. So when I review a paper or when I edit a paper, I have the option to say, yes, I accept that my name will be printed in the final print. Or no, I still can deny this. The corresponding author who is supposed to talk with when you want to address some issue in this publication. And a very important thing, which is the publication timeline. When this paper was submitted, when it was accepted, and when it was published. Unfortunately, in some journals, they put only one name, which is the publication date, and this sometimes creates problems. But perhaps I don't have enough time today to go through some examples of how this can make a problem, but if you are interested, you can talk offline about it. Then we see subsections, such as materials and methods and results. Inside them, inside each of these sections, we can have subheadings. Then we have illustrations, and for illustrations, we have legend. Explain this illustration. At the end of the paper, we see the conclusion and a few sections where some of them were introduced recently, like the data availability or the code availability. If you are publishing some work, or you have done the analysis using some scripts that you created, and you work with some data that you downloaded from somewhere, you can put them together in a website or on GitHub or in any other service, and you can share this. It is required by some journals that you can't get your paper published unless you make your data available. In some cases, you even create a website or a database or a web server to be part of your publication. What was acknowledgement? We'll touch on that. Then the references. So I guess now we are in the same page. You know what we'll be talking about. What I explained is mainly the research article. These parts of the research articles, but there are other types of publications like the review articles, which is there is no primary research in the review article, and most probably the most types that we are reading are the research and review articles, but there are other types of publications like clinical cases, your thesis or thesis proposal, books and book chapters. So I think these 5 are the very common, but still there are a lot of other types of publications, including editorials, perspectives, opinion, letters, and many other types. I tried most of them, or almost all of them. I like to write, and I like to try different types of publications. So I almost try all of these types of publications, each of which is different, and it's perhaps beyond the scope of this lecture, but you are encouraged to check all of them if you are someone who likes to write, like myself. One thing about scientific or academic writing, it's different than storytelling or like fiction writing. It's not the same. This is structured and there are some requirements in the format and in the content, but it's all about storytelling. Your publication is supposed to tell a story, and one major reason for rejection is when the reader is the editor or the reviewer, they cannot get the story. They cannot get what you are talking about, how you started from point 1 and reached point 2. And we will talk about this a lot today. You need to create a storyline for your publication. Because of this reason, we are doing this research. And to do this research, we developed this, and we did those experiments. From this one, we found X, and from this one, we found Y. So we had to do a confirmation. So we did this and that. Finally, we found X, Y, and Z. And what is the meaning of what we found? Then you conclude. So as you can see from this very simplified version of a story, it is a story. And it's supposed to be told in a sequence. The publication process. So this is like a simplified version of what is the roadmap of publication. You start by drafting your manuscript based on your results. Then, after getting the approval from all co-authors, you submit this, or the corresponding author submits your manuscript to the journal, where the editor will read this and either decide to go to the next stage, which is sending to the peer review, or reject this from here. If it's sent to the peer review, it will be reviewed, then send back to you for revisions, unless you are very lucky, and it's very, very rare that the peer review accepts the paper as is and go for publication directly. This is very rare. Usually they require some modifications and some changes. So it be sent to you, you do the revision, actually you send it back to the journal, and the journal send it back to the editor, and the editor send it back to the reviewer to check. Then if they okay with that, they send it to you, they accept it, and if it's accepted, it will be published, and the published article will be available for readers. This is a very simplified version, and it's if you put this in writing and to see who is doing what. Drafting is done by you and your co-authors. If you are the first author, you should write the first draft, or at least a significant part of the first draft. Then the corresponding author submit to the journal. Currently, most of journals accept that someone else, other than the corresponding author, can submit the paper until certain point, when it asks you if you are the corresponding author or not. If you say no, I am not, you need to choose one of the authors and say this is the corresponding author. And from this point onward, you will lose any control on or any access to the submission, and an email will be sent to this author to continue, mostly to approve and make sure that everything is okay and approve the submission. This is because the submission takes time, and perhaps the professors are not, they have a lot of students, so if they keep submitting, it takes some significant part of their time. So it is good that the students can submit their own papers. Then the professor can approve the submission. So this is good. Around the time when I started my master's, maybe 20 years ago, it was required that the professor or the corresponding author to be the one who do the whole process. I was lucky because my master's supervisor taught me how to do this, and he shared this load with me so I can do from his own computer. Then the editor take a look on the paper and decide if this is suitable for his journal or not. If not, it will be rejected from the desk. And this will be very fast. In a couple of days or maybe in a week or so, you'll hear from them. Or otherwise, he will start recruiting reviewers and send the paper to them. Then the revision process will be done by the reviewers. The reviewing will be done by the reviewers, then the revision will be done by you and your co-author. Then the journal's editor will accept the paper for publication, Then the downstream is mainly done by the journal. You need to approve the camera ready version. Perhaps they will ask for some small corrections, like this reference is missing the paper number, or this figure is missing one label in one of its panels, or so very, very small or minor correction. And then it will be indexed. The published paper will be indexed in the indexing services. So far, this overview was a simplified version of the application process, because it shows this as a linear process. So you are going forward all the time. But actually, this is more realistic representation of the publication, because the paper can be rejected at any stage, even after the revision and after submission of 1 or 2 rounds of revision, it can be still rejected. And rejection is part of the life. You need to deal with the rejection. It's not the end of the world. You will be rejected more than accepted in any activity you are doing. For instance, before joining the graduate school at Lakehead, perhaps you applied to multiple schools and you got some rejection. When you write your paper, it maybe you will be rejected by 1 or 2 journals before one journal will accept this. To apply to scholarship or fellowship, you will get a lot of rejection. To apply for jobs, you will get a lot of rejection, and so on. Even when you are a professor, when you apply to funding like research grants, you will be also rejected. So rejection is part of the academic life, and you're supposed to be able to deal with this. And I think in most of the cases, nothing is personal. It's just a process. Okay, before jumping to how to write and what to write, we need to know 4 tones of writing. There are 4 types or 4 tones of writing. When we write, we are either writing in a descriptive way or analytical way or persuasive way or critical way, or critical tones. So what is every one of these? Description is a descriptive tone, or descriptive writing is just stating facts without any modification or organization or any interpretation from yourself. Just you state what happened, like in the summary of something. So you just state what happened, or in the materials and methods. You use this material, or use this software, or use this chemical. So it's just stating some facts or providing some facts. What is analytical is different, because you reorganize and categorize facts and the information. And perhaps the descriptive and the analytical are clear enough, because the persuasive is analytical, plus you add your own point of view. That's why it's persuasive. You want to persuade, to convince those who are reading that you are correct, or your point of view is correct. While the critical, it's persuasive, so it's again it's analytical plus point of view, but in this case it's multiple points of view. Like when you write a review article or the review of literature of your thesis, you write in this critical tone. In writing, we don't write in one of these types or one of these tones only. We write in multiple tones in the same time, or in the same section, or in the same manuscript. For the literature review, as I just said, we use a critical writing, because it's important when we use this writing in the review of literature. It is good because it can point the gaps and the opportunity to do research in the field. While on the method section, we use a descriptive writing. Just what we did. We got this chemical, we use this machine, we use this software, this statistical test, this algorithm with those parameters. Just what we did or what we ordered and used. No interpretation, no bias, no pros and cons for why we did this. No. While in the results section, we use descriptive because we describe our results, and analytical because we organize and categorize them based on their relevance. The discussion section, we use analytical and persuasive. Analytical because it is organized and categorized information, and persuasive because in the discussion I want to convince the reader or the reviewer or the editor with my point of view, and that my results are good, my results are significant, my results are correct. So I am persuading. It's persuasive. For academic writing, there are a few features that's supposed to be in your writing, and that's why we say it's different than fiction writing or other type of writing. It's supposed to be accurate, so only you report what you found and observed. Don't oversell, or definitely don't write things that you didn't find in your results. Also, be concise. Don't repeat, even when you write results and discussion sections that are separated. Don't repeat your results again in the discussion. Just refer to them in the results section. Be clear, because writing is a way of communicating your results. So if it's not clear, you are not communicating your results. And one very good approach to make sure that your writing is clear is to send your manuscript to some of your peers or some people in the field who you trust their background and experience to read your manuscript and give you feedback on the writing, especially if you are like me, where English is not your first language. I even in Japan, I used paid service. So I sent my manuscripts to a company that is specialized in this. So they polish the English and they send me comments on certain parts of the manuscript, how to rewrite, rephrase this, or we can't understand this part. What exactly you want to say here, so we can help you rephrase your writing. It is not here we are in Canada, so we are surrounded with native speakers. So if I have a native speaker in the team, they can do this for me. Otherwise, I use even paid service for this, because it's crucial that our writing to be clear and understandable. It needs to be structured, following the type of the article and the guidelines of the journal, and evidence. This is so important because you have three types of information in your manuscript. You have general knowledge or common knowledge, you have information, and you have your results. For the common knowledge, if it's really common knowledge, you don't need to reference this. You don't need reference to say that Ottawa is a capital of Canada. This is common knowledge. But when you want to say that Toronto is the biggest city in Canada and 30% of the economy of Canada is in Ontario, if you want to say things like this, then you need to find a reference, perhaps the Statistics Canada 2022 census, some kind of reference you put for this thing. So it's not a common knowledge, it's an information. So you need to reference this. Number 3 is your results. Your results supposed to be supported by your data. In figures, in data that you can attach to your manuscript, in tables, whatsoever from your results. It's for each information in your results, it's supposed to be supported by your data. So 3 types of information. 1, you don't need a reference. 1, you are required to provide a reference. One, you don't have a reference, but it's your own, so you need to provide support from your own data. Common writing problems. There are a few common writing problems. This slide, I think, from a course that I studied during my master's about 16 or 17 years ago. I was doing my master's, and over the years, I think these 5 proved to be very true. The most common writing problem. First, the paper is too lengthy, especially with the open access now and the online publication. We don't have the restriction of pages, number of pages, and we don't pay per page like before. So you can just go on with your writing, then the paper will be very long. This is bad. It should be in reasonable length, and it should be also balanced. The sections within the paper are supposed to be balanced. You can't have a very, very long introduction, then a very short discussion and results. They should be balanced. Number 2 is the writing flow is not smooth. We will have examples for this in the examples, but I remember one of my master's supervisors, he was using always the term logical jump when it comes to some of my writing. You are talking about one thing, then in the next paragraph you introduce the complete new thing without making any transition between them. This is not a smooth flow. The smooth flow, we will get some examples and we will see how we move from one idea to the next idea in a smooth way. The structure of paper is poor. Usually, if you follow the guidelines and you know what type of paper you are writing, from the journal which you are submitting to, you can download the author guidelines and follow them. You will avoid this. Addressing several issues at the same time. This is also related to the logical jump or the smooth, the flow that is not smooth. Usually, you will address one issue per time. And if you have multiple issues, then you break this into multiple paragraphs or multiple subsections. One very common reason for rejection is when you submit your manuscript to a wrong journal, to the wrong journal. The wrong journal here is based on the scope. You think your manuscript is in the scope of this paper, of this journal, but it is not. Or you submit a review article to a journal that only publishes review articles, so there's nothing wrong here. But you didn't read the guidelines of the journal, which say that all the reviews are commissioned. So they publish reviews based on invitation. So they send to me and say, we have this issue and we need a review article in this particular subject. Do you have time? If okay, I say yes, then I write the review article. But I can't write the review article from my end, then send it to them. It's a editorial policy of this journal, so the rejection will be guaranteed. So this kind of information, like submitting outside the scope of the journal or submitting to a journal that does not accept this type of submission, is very it's quite common, and it will result in rejection 100% because you're doing something wrong. What we mentioned here in this slide are mistakes. Like those are mistakes or technical problems. But in here, what to avoid in writing, those are somehow crimes or something that can end your academic career. Number one is overclaiming. Overclaiming or like overselling. It can be just wrong, and I guess students, especially in the early points in their career, based on their limited experience, they always oversell themselves, or they always feel that the results are very good, the best. Yes, it's good to feel this about our results, but it should be in context. Otherwise, it will be spotted easily by the experience of the reviewers and editors and say that this is like it's not as good as they claim. Number two is the fabrication of the results, which is it not only will result in the rejection of your work or retraction of even the paper after publication, but it will damage you. And it can damage your career and your supervisor's career also. There are a lot of stories about this. We don't have the luxury now to tell some of them, but definitely avoid this. Number three is plagiarism. It's very easy to be spotted, and again, this also can result in a very bad consequences. Submitting a paper without getting approval from all authors, it can be problematic, especially if one of the authors disagree and send it to the journal. Also, not mentioning one of the reviewers or not one of the authors, or not getting their consent to be in the acknowledgement instead of the authors. This is things that you will develop over the time. How to arrange the authorship and how to get everyone to be on the same page regarding to where they are from the publication. Those with bigger contributions, they are co-authors. With major contributions, they are either first or joint first authors or corresponding or joint corresponding authors. You need to put this clear with everyone. Those with small contributions, like they allow you to use their lab space or some equipment they have, or their computers, or they provided some material, they should be acknowledged only, not being co-authors. An important reminder that it doesn't matter how good is your results, how spectacular are your results. As long as they are not published, your work is still incomplete, and people cannot read it or use it for reference. So publication is to finish your work and make it available for everyone in the society to read. That's why after we finish our results, we are not finished yet. We need to write them, then we need to go through the publication process until we make them published. Again, to this slide, we will start taking one by one of these sections and talk about them, give some tips and tricks and all of this kind of stuff, and we will have to get some examples also. The title and the abstract. The title and the abstract. The title is the only part of your publication that is read by everyone. So if the readers will read one thing from your paper or your thesis, they will read the title. If they will read two, it's the title and the abstract. So title and abstract are the most important parts, and we'll spend some good time with them in the next few slides. The title. The title is, I just mentioned, it's the most important, but what we should put in the title? The aim and conclusion of the paper or of the work. So why we did this and what we found. If you are working with certain organism, species, disease, gene, type of computing platform, certain demographics, certain country, this should be included in the title. You need to tell us also what did you find, your results or your conclusion. It is good to be catchy, but it's not essential. It's better to be interesting more than catchy. And remember that when people start writing, in the first few seconds, they will be either attracted to continue or they will lose their interest. So the first part of your title is so important. The title should be reasonable in length. Sometimes there are some restrictions by some journals for the length of the title, and we will see that sometimes are so long, so you can't really get anything from all this information provided in the title. You need to avoid non-standard abbreviations. If it's non-standard, it's better to write the full thing, not the abbreviated term. Avoid jargons, because you don't know who will read the title. The title exists, it appears in the search results in all indexing services and databases. So you are not sure that those who will read the title are always from the field, but perhaps be also interested to learn about the field. So avoid jargons in the title. Usually start with the positive word, not the negative. Make it descriptive and precise, and make sure it's not misleading, like overselling that we just mentioned in a few slides before this. So a few more tips about writing the titles. You need to mention the setting of the experiment, the population, the condition, the design, the demographics, as I just mentioned. If you are working with a topic very relevant to the sample size, especially in the medical research and in the questionnaires, you need to mention the sample size, because it's important for people in the domain to know this big number of people who responded to this questionnaire or to participate in this questionnaire or not, because the sample size is very important. So they like to see this in the title. The important terms should be in the beginning of the title, as I just mentioned, that the first part of the title is very important. And if there are instructions from the journal related to the length of the title, you need to adhere to this. Now, with the first exercise, I will let you read these two titles for 1 minute. Then I need to hear from you what is the problems with these two titles. Okay, who can start? What is the problem or problems you can see in the first title? You can write in the chat.
Yeah, we have people here that would like to.
Okay, if someone wants to speak, it's even better.
The first one is too long, I think.
Yes,
The
this
number of the words.
This one thing, it's too long. It's 25 words. It's too long. What else?
Biology.
It's a sentence, right?
The second one
No, we see the first one. It is long. So this one mistake. What else?
It's not interesting.
It is full of terms.
Yeah, it gives us much information. I think it's not like a title, it's more like a sentence.
Yes, it's full of technology related, like they use different technologies and different methods. So they state all of them because they are very, very hot, and they want to say that we use the whole exome sequencing and targeted enrichment sequencing. So they added like 10 more words to the title. Okay, what about the second title?
Yeah, I think the second one has so many repetition.
Yes,
Like,
exactly. This is one.
Maybe-
Yes, this is one problem with the second one, the repetition, because for they have his pediatric index of mortality 2 and 3, so they wrote it twice. Instead, they could have wrote it pediatric index of mortality 2 and 3 without the repetition of the whole name. So this is one thing. What else?
It didn't explain the whole idea of the paper. These are seems like examples.
Yes, here they ended by they use these to predict mortality in pediatric intensive care unit. They didn't say if they like this prediction was good or not, or perhaps their target is only the prediction. So the conclusion is yes, we were able to predict based on these indexes, but this is not so clear from the title. Also, it's too long. Surprisingly, it's 28 words compared to the first one. It's 25. So it's also so long. So let's see how we rewrite these two. So in the first one, we remove the name of the approaches that they used, and so we write by modern genomic approaches. And I rearranged the title a little bit. So I put the subject, which is the European cancer, breast cancer in European women. I put it before the method that they use. Actually, we use because I am an author in this paper. For the other one, I'll make it short by removing the repetition. So 2 and 3 scores instead of saying pediatric index of mortality 2 and pediatric index of mortality 3. No, I removed it in 2 and 3. Also, ICU, the intensive care unit, it's a very common abbreviation. So why we intensive care unit? Why you put the whole thing here? So instead, I put the common abbreviation. So now they are shorter and they are more appealing compared to the very long version that we had in the previous slide. And these two are of real published research. I didn't cook this, but anyway. So one more exercise. What is the problems with these two titles?
Let's take from the other side. No? The second one is easy. Huh? Yes, no. Say it. No. Okay. Yeah.
You hear me? Yeah, I think you have to change like prism. Do you hear me?
Yes,
you hear me?
Yes. Why I need to remove prism?
Yeah, you have to. I think it's like abbreviation for the word.
Exactly. It's non-standard abbreviation. So you don't need to put it because we already with the predicted risk of mortality, which is prism.
Yeah, so you have to change with it. Change with the other one.
Remove this, and also PIM need to be removed.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
And here we see that they use the ICU, so they use the abbreviation, unlike the other title. So this is correct, but they use the abbreviation, the common abbreviation. But it's wrong that they put these non-common abbreviations, then they put the complete form. As long as you are putting the complete form, it's fine. Problem is sometimes they like to do this because the search engine will search for PRISM and PIM. Like people type PRISM and PIM. So maybe this is the reason they put this, but it shouldn't be here. What about the second title? It's not a research article, by the way. This one was a shorter form of
it's almost nothing, and there is no special professional words, and it's just like a sentence.
Yes, actually, it has a story, because this is not a research article, it was a letter to the editor about a published article say that every gene is a cancer gene. So we just want to say that this is not wrong, not correct. So we said no, like not every gene is a cancer gene, but this also is not the best way to say this. So let's see the two titles after updating. We will remove these non-standard abbreviations, and here we start with a negative word. We shouldn't start with a negative word. So we started with a positive word. Every gene is not a cancer gene. So, and actually this is also stating our finding. Like our finding is not every gene is a cancer gene. But again, this is not a research article. This title is not a research article. I just put this here because it is good to see that here we started with negative and we then updated this to start with positive. So thank you very much. Let's go further to the next part, which is the abstract. The abstract is a summary of your paper, and it's basically a miniaturized version of the whole paper. So it's similar to the title, should be concise, clear, no overselling, only stating what you found. But it highlights the selling points or selling point of the manuscript. What exactly you did, and what you found, and if you used a very recent technology or a very special device, it should be mentioned. Again, it's a small version of your paper, so it contains all and every part of your paper. It should be self-sufficient, comprehensive, and complete. It should be independent and standalone. So if I read the title and the abstract, I will get an overview of what you have done. I don't need to read any other part of your paper to be able to understand or to get the big image. It should be written in a scholarly and balanced way. It's not just a summary. And we will see that it will be also structured. Again, it shouldn't be misleading by overselling or by making your research look different than it should be. And the language is very important here because, as I said, title and abstract are the things that most probably will be read usually by the editor to decide to reject or not. Most probably the editor will reject or take the decision of rejection from the abstract, from the title and the abstract. They will not go further. Going further means reading the rest of the paper, which is a decision. So as an editor, I decide I will read further or no, I will not. This seems to be either bad or outside the scope or written in a very weak language. This will be clear from the title and the abstract. That's why they are very important. So again, it is used by the editor to decide the fate of your article, and also by the reviewers to decide if they will review or not your article. So help yourself, give this favor to yourself by making your title and abstract outstanding. And just to give you an example, when I prepared these slides about 1 year ago, I just checked my phone while I'm making this slide, and I found at that moment I have 5 invitations to edit manuscripts from one journal in one day or in one moment of the day. So the thing is, usually from one journal you can get, as an editor, you can get 10 or maybe more than 10 papers per day. Sometimes you accept to do the editing, or sometimes you are busy, so you don't. But the point is, you don't have the luxury to read all of them. Only the title and the abstract help us to decide to go to the next step or just to reject. And the rejection is easy for the editor. So, so here you need to help yourself to make this favor to yourself by make your title and abstract speak about you and your work. There are a few types of abstracts. I don't want to go very deep in these, but in a nutshell, There are descriptive abstracts that are short and unstructured, and there are informal abstracts or full-length abstracts that are big enough to put in a lot of information in them. And from the structure point of view, there are unstructured abstracts and structured abstracts. The structured can be 4 points or 8 points. 8 points are only for medical papers, but 4 points are quite common in all publications, in all fields. The descriptive is just a very short paragraph, 75 to 150 words, and it's usually used in some shorter types of scientific communications. I will show some examples. It describes a very small overview of the work, and it doesn't have even the title as an abstract. It's like the first paragraph of the paper. The informative or the full-length abstract, it's 200 to 300 words. So you have like almost 1 page to write, or a good big paragraph to write. So you can give complete details of the summary of the article, and it can be like a short version of the paper. Structured is just putting this one paragraph into 4 short paragraphs. Just structure them by adding subtitles like background, methods, results, and conclusion in most of the fields. But in the medical field, they have more to add, like the study design, the study setting, the patients or participants, the intervention or methods which they use to intervene with this medical problem, the outcome measures, how they measure these outcomes, and the results and conclusion. But so this is very relevant only to the medical applications. But the unstructured is just 1 paragraph. And what we'll see some examples here. This paper in Nature Methods. In Nature Methods and many other Nature journals, they publish a publication called Brief Communications, which is a research article, but it's small. So Omar and Gary, I was working with Gary in his lab, and when they published this, they had to add this very short abstract. And as you can see, there is nothing here called abstract or no title. It's just the first paragraph of the paper, and it's very short. Well, in this paper we published in 2020, I guess, or 2021, you can see this full-length abstract. We wrote a lot, and here you can see numbers, you can see names of genes or domains, you can see a URL, so everything is written. While in this paper, I think we published this 2021 or 2022, you can see the abstract is long and it is structured. So there's background, methods, results, and conclusion. And also we have a section here for funding. If you see funding from certain organization, you state it here. So you see this long and very similar to the paper, because in the paper there is background, which is introduction, materials and methods, it's the methods, results section, which is here the results, and conclusion, which is what is the outcome of this paper, or what we conclude from this research. So this is one example of an abstract that we published in one of our papers. It was published in Nature 2020. And it was part of a quite big project. So here I highlighted different parts of the abstract in different colors. So let's take this as an example and see how it is written. The first sentence, the discovery of drivers of cancer has traditionally focused on protein-coding genes. One sentence gives the whole background. And this was enough for this particular purpose, or for the purpose of this paper. Then from the second sentence, immediately we start by, here we present So we start. It seems that we are talking about our results, but actually no. Here we present the analysis that we did on this data from this project, this project, this project. So here it's more of a method instead of a material instead of results. Then we explained more about the methods that we used. For point mutation, we developed a statistical rigorous strategy for combining. I will share the slides with you so you'll have time to read this, but just here I am showing that this part in orange is method. So we developed this method, and for the structural variant, we present two methods. So we are talking about methods. Then the third part is our analysis confirmed previously reported drivers, raised doubts about others, and identify novel candidates. Obviously, these are the results. Okay. Then we conclude. We show that although point mutation and structural variants that drive cancer are less frequently in non-coding genes and the regulatory sequence, then in protein coding genes, additional examples of those drivers will be found as more cancer genomes become available. So this is the conclusion. So this is not structured, it's unstructured, and it's a full length. And to convert this to structured, we just add titles to this 4 sections. So this is the background, this is the method, this is the results, and this conclusion. So either a structured abstract or non-structured abstract. This is usually required by the journal. As long as your abstract is written in a correct way, it will be very easy to switch between the two formats. Here we didn't change a single word. The published abstract is this one, unstructured. But I converted this to structured in a very easy way. Back to this slide, we already finished the first part of the paper, the title and the abstract, and now we'll go to the figures. And after the figures, we'll take the paper. Figures and tables, or illustrations in general. Usually we require them, we need to have them first to show our data, and as I mentioned, we need to support our results by our own data, and this data is shown in these illustrations. For the table, we have a table legend, and we have footnotes here or table notes. We can, if we want to add some information about any of these cells, you can add here as a note. For the columns, we have titles for each column, and we have the table body. Usually the table need to be organized or sorted in some way. Sorted by the date, by the alphabetic order, by the efficiency of, we are comparing some algorithms against each other, which is more efficient, so you sort them. It is better to sort them so it will be easier for people to read. This one, I don't think it's sorted, but it's small anyways, but sometimes the tables are big, and because of that, it is better to sort the table. Some tips and tricks when you prepare tables. Titles should be clear and descriptive. Columns and rows headings should be well defined. And I promised myself I will not tell stories in this lecture, because I like to tell stories about problems that happen from things that I'm trying to tell you not to do. But here I will tell a very short story. There was a very big publication about the comparison of 8 different drugs for cancer. And the conclusion was that drug number 8 is the most efficient for this particular type of cancer. The problem was that the columns were labeled in a wrong way. So it resulted to be the opposite. The drug number 8 was the worst, but the conclusion said it's the best. And the paper was retracted, and it was a big issue. So it's not a small thing when you make mistakes in your columns and rows in your tables. So this is something that you need to be very careful with. Also, it needs to be well defined so people can understand what in the table without much effort. Again, it should be sorted, like ascending or descending, or based on the date or whatever. Alignment and formatting and consistency is very important. If you are showing 2 decimal points, 2 decimal digits, you need to show 2 in all of them. If you are abbreviating things, you need to be consistent with the abbreviation, and so on. You need to show the units for the numbers, and even for the currency or whatever. You need to show what currency. If you calculate the cost of computation for different algorithms, for instance, you need to show in dollars, but even in dollars, you need to say which dollars. And if this table is like this one, you need to add references. So all those are different studies, and they are in this table. They are talking about the findings of other people, so they need to mention the references here. Figures. The figure consists from 2 things: the figure and the legend. And the figure itself consists of panels. So panel A, panel B, and for each figure there's a figure name and number. So like figure 1, figure 2, supplementary figure 1, supplementary figure 2, and so on. And for the legend, there is a legend for A, which describes what we see here in the top, and for B, which describes what we see here in the bottom. To prepare illustrations, given this illustration is a figure or a table or a multimedia or a supplementary material that you add, like a video or whatever, for the readers to understand more about your results, you need to know when to use them. Tables and figures can summarize large amounts of information. So when you have large amounts of information, you don't need to list them in the text. It will be very tedious and very difficult to understand and to compare values. So instead, you convert this to a table or a figure. However, in the same time, there are some limitations for number of illustrations by journals. And even if there is no limitations, you can't put 20 illustrations in your publications. They are a lot. So don't overuse them. So when the reader is reading like one sentence, then they go to check the figure because you cite one figure, then they go back and read 2 more sentences and they go to check the table. It is not the best experience of reading publications. So you have a lot of data, okay, make figures or tables, but don't overuse this. They should be presented clearly, and you need to be careful in choosing the format and the data to be emphasized. And you need to strictly follow the instructions to the authors, which is provided by all journals. In any journal, you will find a link called instructions to authors or something with the same meaning, guidelines to authors or whatever. you need to follow, especially in illustrations and references, they are very strict about this. And the overall structure of the paper, they are very strict about these three. So you need to follow this. How to integrate them? I mentioned that if you are reading, then jumping to check one figure, then you go back, read, then you go to the table, then you go back and read. This will be interrupting the reading a lot. So you don't need to put this headache on your reader. No matter how many tables or figures you put, all of them supposed to be cited, and whatever in them supposed to be summarized in the text. So we found X, Y, and Z. You explain enough, then you cite the figure or the table so people can go and see the details of this data. There are a lot of types of figures, more than the ability to put all of them or examples for all of them. So in these few slides, I will go through different types of figures and illustrations that people are using. The most basic thing is the graphs and the charts. They are very common. They are based on your data, and they always very good in communicating the information. But also you have these experimental outcomes. Some of them are just images, like these gel images, this Western plot and two gel electrophoresis, or they are drawn by the software comes with a device that you use, like the flow cytometry or the RNA sequencing quality. And there is images, and you cannot replace them. So here in this treatment, this some guy was working in water treatment, and he wants to show 4 types of treatments, how each of them was efficient in cleaning the car wash water. So he showed different types of treatments or different stages of treatment, and until he reached this treated water that is so clear. You can't describe this in words. You only need, you can only show this to your readers visually in an image. Also here, this electron microscope image of the network of proteins in milk after coagulation. So here the network was not dense at all, but after 60 seconds of the treatment, became very dense. You can describe this in words, but you will never communicate the message like this figure. Also, there are advanced ways of presenting the data, like heat map or network, or complex figures or charts where you have multiple types of figures in the same chart. There are also schematics and processes like flowcharts, like or the database design or circuits. And there is something called the graphical abstract that is required by some journals now. So they require a figure to summarize your finding. Also, there is this type of workflow which I usually like to put in my publications, where it summarizes visually the steps we use for doing certain process or summarizing all our methodology. Like in this case, we train the model, we create the model, trained it, tested until we get a robust model, and then use this model for the simulation or the prediction. The actual figure is a complex thing. So all of these were like one figure or one panel of the figure. But when we come to a real figure in the publication, you will find A, B, C, and D panels, can be even more, and each of them is different. Each of these figures is a different figure, but it's a panel. That's why we need a legend, and we need labels for each panel, so we call them A, B, C, and D, or even E here. So here this is schematic or drawing. This is a donut chart. This is an output of certain software, and this is a stacked bar chart, and this is a bar chart, all of them in one figure. That's why a lot of information can be summarized and presented in one figure, and that's why we need a clear legend this figure. Okay. Next, be materials and methods. I think we'll get like 10 minutes break, maybe 5 minutes only. Then we continue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Helmi.
Okay, the materials and methods section. In this section, this is the only section in the manuscript that you write the whole thing in a descriptive tone. Only descriptive, just you explain which materials you used, which methods you followed, and that's all. And it is important because it provides two things. First, it provides the reader, given this reader is a reviewer of the or the editor, with the information to be able to judge the correctness and the accuracy of your work, if you follow the correct procedure or not. Also, it is a place where you can provide the readers of your published work with instructions on how they can reproduce your work. The difference between science and pseudoscience is reproducibility. Once the thing is reproducible, it's science. But if it's not reproducible, like in this energy healing or this magic or things that people are doing without any rules, it can work one time, but it cannot work in the other time, but it doesn't work in the other time, then it's not reproducible, so it's not science. The methods part is where we make our work real science, or prove it's science because it can be reproducible based on following these instructions. It is the easiest part of the manuscript to be written, and it's usually pre-written because when you do an experiment, you document this somewhere. So you need just to copy this text, and in 1 hour or so, you will have your method sections ready. But nearly 1/3 of the rejections are because of the method section. Why? Because it's easy to spot the problem. So when we write the methods, the materials, we need to list all the materials that we used. If we use any materials from human, from animals, from cells, cell lines, or reagents, kits, chemicals, certain devices, certain computers, or certain computing platforms, we need to list all of this in the material. While in the methods or in the procedures, sometimes we call it procedures, we need to list all what we did with this material. Experiments, computational analysis, statistical tests. If we use some algorithm or software, we provide the name in details and the version of the software, the parameters which we give to this algorithm. And everything is supposed to be descriptive, and the description needs to be enough for people to be able to repeat your work. If the length of the paper is not enough to put all the information that you think it's essential, you can add this as supplementary information. And most of the journals now accept this. In fact, there are some journals they almost removed all the method section and they put the whole thing in the supplementary to make the paper shorter. And if you want to read the methods, you go to the supplementary section, which is in the website of the journal. In the methods, there is no discussion at all, either for the results or for the why you choose this method over the other. No, just descriptive writing. some guidelines here are important. We usually, in the method, we usually use past tense. And we use active voice instead of passive when possible. Sometimes it is not possible. Like when you say this analysis was done using CyNet, the supercomputer of Canada, so it is passive. You can say that CyNet did the analysis. So when it's possible, you use active, but sometimes we use passive. Remember, when you write your thesis, or when you are the single author of a publication, to use I instead of we. In your thesis, you need to use I to show that you are the one who did this work. If you are using a method that is published by yourself before or published by someone else, you don't need to explain the details of the method. You can just cite this published method. Like here, we obtained the robust mathematical model using the modeling strategies that we previously described at this publication. This will make your methods more concise, although it's usually make it more difficult for people to get the details, because you need to go to some other papers to read to get the whole picture. Okay, one more exercise. This is a sentence from the method section of one publication. Can you guys, in 1 minute, read this and say what is the problem and how to improve this? Okay, anyone?
Yeah. No, you said you can pass.
There is a passive sentence that
Okay,
can be
this is
converted
one.
into active.
Okay, so this is one problem. Also, there usually in the method we see all these very specific terms. We expect that people who read the methods are those who are really deep in the field. So it is expected to see all these terms and some jargons and stuff. It's okay. Here in the method, this is okay, and also perhaps in some other places. But what you can see here, these are 3 sentences, and there seems to be a lot of data that can be removed from here, while we maintain the completeness of the information. So let's see how we can do this. So here, in the first sentence, before showing this, here we have mice, and we obtain the blood from them. Using the portal vein, we punch this with puncture. Then we injected them with something which is diethyl ether. Then from the blood we took from them, we put this in acid citrate dextrose, in certain volume of acid citrate dextrose. So those are 3 information that we have here in these 3 sentences. So let's see this shorter version. Blood was drawn from mice, which was terminally put to sleep. This is very difficult word, but it means that they put them to sleep using this dimethyl ether through the portal vein puncture, and the blood which they already obtained, they put in this volume of the acid. So now it's more concise. It's 1 sentence instead of 3, but still it's passive. So we can even improve this more by we used dimethyl ether to terminally put the mice to sleep, then draw their blood using the portal vein puncture, and this volume was put in this acid. So likewise, we avoided this lengthy explanation. We said exactly the same information to the user, to the reader, so they can reproduce this particular procedure with obtaining the blood from the mice, but it's in a shorter way and in a active voice instead of passive voice. Okay. So remember the rule of thumb, it's concise, clear, and simple explanation. So this is what exactly we have done here. We make it concise, we make it clear, and we explain this in a very simplified way. So a few tips here for writing the material and methods. The best way to actually the best practice in writing materials and methods, you do this while you are working. It's a pre-written part, because every time you are doing analysis, given it's experimental analysis or statistical analysis, computational analysis, you are doing this and you store the results somewhere or the procedure somewhere. So while you are storing this, just put in your mind that I will use this in my thesis or my publication. So write the methodology that you, or the procedure that you have done in a clear way. Once you decide to write your thesis or your paper, just to go to your notebook, copy this text, and with 1 cup of tea or coffee for 1 hour, you rephrase the whole thing, revise them, then you will have one whole section of your paper drafted in 1 hour also. So this is a very good habit you need to develop during your postgraduate. Usually you start with general information that is common in many parts of the manuscript. So if you are extracting proteins from certain sample, from doing proteomics, so you have done a few experiments, and each of them you use the protein extraction. So it's better to start with the protein extraction early in the methods. So whoever will read the paper will read it once, and it will help them in every time when you mention the extraction of the protein. Usually the flow of the method needs to match the flow of the results. So you start by the methods of the first experiment, then the method of the second experiment, the method of the third experiment, and so on. So the paper will have the same flow. Definitely need to cite any procedure that you have described, that was described previously, although it can be done by yourself or your lab. You still need to cite this. Statistical tests need to be fully described, including any parameters, especially in computational analysis and in using software to do this particular statistical test. You need to provide the parameters. So if anyone wants to reanalyze your data or a similar data, they need to know this information. No discussion at all. It's just description. This you describe what you have done, your procedure, but you don't say we choose this method over the other method that someone else chose in their publication because this has these advantages or as the other one has these disadvantages. No, you need to say this in the description, in the discussion section, but not in the methods. In the methods, there is no results, no discussion, just what you have done. You need to be concise, but in the same time, you need to provide enough information for people who want to do the same work. It is easier if you have a checklist. So you go through them, these 7 questions you ask yourself every time after you write your message section. First, if you include sufficient details for anyone to reproduce the work, because this one major reason for writing the methods is to provide the community with a way to reproduce your results. Also, if there any details that can be removed or parts that can be rephrased. The example which I gave a few slides ago. In each experiment, you need the control, so make sure that your controls are mentioned. Citations for all the material and methods that you used that are developed by other people, and materials that you ordered from somewhere. So the source of the reagents need to be listed. The company name, the city, if there is a version or date or anything important, it's supposed to be or batch number or SKU, the ID of the product need to be listed. You need to mention the manufacturer devices that you have used. For software, for any software you use, you need to have the name, the version, the settings that you use in this software. So you need to check to make sure that everything of this is written. Okay, so get back to this slide again. The next will be the introduction. But before we go to the introduction, I can take a few questions. Then we go to the introduction.
Anyone would like to start? No one? No?
Okay, if there are no questions, we can take the questions.
Okay, I have a bunch of questions, but I can ask it later.
Okay. Introduction. For me, it's the most interesting part in the manuscript, and it's the thing that I really enjoy writing. Because in the introduction, it's a place where you create your story and where you convince the reader with the importance of your research, the problem that you want to solve, or the knowledge gap that you want to fill. Then you, after you state this problem, you state the action. So we found this problem, and our action is to develop this new statistical method to analyze this data and so on, or to do this experiment to prove that this is correct or not. And finally, the resolution. The resolution here, after the action, you have results. What did you find in these results? Okay. One thing that make you know that it's good or not is if the introduction draw the attention or attract the readers to read further in your paper. The introduction is supposed to be like this. I divide the paragraphs in the introduction into 3 paragraphs. Actually, 3 sections, but I will call them paragraphs because usually in a research article, the introduction is 3 to 4 paragraphs. So I call them paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and paragraph 3. And let's see what we have in each of them. The first paragraph or the first part of the introduction is a background. It's supposed to provide background to this research. So what system or what organism or what type of field you are interested in, and information about when it was discovered and how it was developed, and perhaps giving some examples of why it's important and some examples about this. So basically, you are preparing the reader to embark in the next part, which is paragraph number 2, where you can go to more specific information about the question and or the knowledge gap or the problem that you observed. So what particularly is important in this field? What we currently know, and if there are any controversies about this knowledge that we are talking about. Then you can add details that result in another paragraph. So paragraph 2 or the second section in the introduction can be more than 1 paragraph. Usually it's 1, sometimes 2, and in a few cases it can be even more than this. And we will give a complete example for the introduction. The last paragraph of the introduction, or the paragraph number 3, is objective, brief results and conclusion of your findings, or the outcome of your research. So you state the question in particular. How did you approach this, which is action, and what did you did exactly, and what did you find, which is the outcome. So usually when I read the paper and I want to know exactly what they have done, I just go to the last paragraph in the introduction. Okay, so I mentioned the word paragraph many times, so I want to define the paragraph not from the language point of view, but from the writing point of view. One paragraph is one idea. So if I have a paragraph somewhere in my thesis or in my manuscript, it should discuss a single idea. And it's not supposed to be very long, between 150 and 200 words, sometimes a little bit more longer than this, like 250 words is still okay for one paragraph. But usually if it's longer than this, perhaps you are discussing more than one idea. And in this case, you need to spread this into two paragraphs, one per idea. There is a structure for the paragraph. It has an opening, then the discussion of the idea, then a closing sentence. The opening sentence is introduction to the idea, and the closing sentence is connecting this paragraph to the next paragraph. So we avoid this logical jump that I mentioned before, or we create this smooth flow of the paper. You don't close one paragraph and open with a completely new thing that without connecting one with the other. So I'll give you a full example of a complete introduction that I wrote specially for this course for an assumed or imaginary research. That's why it's not copied from somewhere, it's just developed for this particular educational purpose. And in this research, I assume that someone during COVID found that the students at the medical and nursing schools, they can't go to the hospital because we have this lockdown and hospitals are full of sick people, so they can go inside, get the infections, and they go back to their home and spread the virus. So we can't really give them what they need from clinical education. The clinical education is a part of their study where they study in the hospital, where they interact with the patients, when their professors explain in real cases what's going on. So I assume that someone is working in the education field and they spotted this information. So how they would write their introduction? So this paragraph number 1. Here I color-coded the first and last sentences. This is the introduction sentence, and this is the sentence that connect with the next paragraph. So let's see how this will go. So they start with the pandemic caused by COVID-19 caused disruption to several aspects of the life we know. Okay, so we open this with the introduction sentence saying that we are talking about the pandemic caused by COVID-19 and the disruption to the life. Education was one of the most affected aspects. Schools and higher education institutions adopted several approaches to cope with this sudden change, including conducting online classes, changes evaluation schemes, and several other distance-based approaches. Then I put multiple references here because here I several other distance-based approaches. So I put them here instead of listing them because there is no point to list them. So I just put them as references. Between 2020 and 2022, these approaches were improved and proven useful as all education institutions worldwide adopted them fully or partially with noticeable success. Then a lot of references also, because here I used plural in many things, like I said, many institutions worldwide adopted them. So I'm talking about many things, so I need multiple references. However, clinical education in medical and nursing schools remains highly on-site, which threatens the health of the students and teacher and makes them potential threats of transmitting the virus. So this sentence zoom into the problem that we want to discuss in the next paragraph, which discuss the question and the knowledge gap. Clinical subjects. So here we introduce the clinical subject only in this sentence, in the last sentence of the paragraph, because we will discuss this in the next paragraph. So this is the transmission that I was talking about. Clinical subjects represent a crucial component of the medical education. This is the opening sentence. I will talk in this paragraph about the importance of the clinical subject in the medical education. Then this black part is talking about why it's important, how they are taking these departments, taking this lecture in the departments of the hospitals, and they interact with cases, real cases, and to observe symptoms, communicate with the patients, and even perform some treatments like stitching or whatever. Therefore, the disruption of these classes present a great challenge in the medical education. Here is the main problem that this paper or this research will discuss. How to avoid this disruption and in the same time give enough education to these doctors and nurses. From here, actually, you can add a third paragraph. So paragraph number 2 here can be 2. The second part of the introduction can be 2 paragraphs. In this, the second paragraph, which I didn't write, it can be about online education, its potential, and the examples of its application and success in other fields other than the clinical education. Then paragraph number 3, the objective and the brief results. In this study, which you usually will find this last paragraph in the introduction, start with in this paper or in this study, or here we are, or here we present. So you know that you are in the correct paragraph, which will state the objective, the methodology briefly, and the results. In this study, you investigated the effectiveness of and efficiency of teaching the clinical subjects online for students of the medical and nursing schools. Then we designed an online version of the same. So it is the method, the method that they follow. I was teaching this to some Egyptian students, so I used Egyptian universities here. Then here we talk about the methodology. So we created a sample of students, a representative sample of students, balanced. Then we divided it into 2 balanced groups. One group will study in the hospital, one group will study at home, online. Then we will have the same evaluation scheme for both of them, and we will see the results. Our results show that the first group of students, which study online, performed better in the written exams and in the oral evaluation compared to the second group, which is on-site. So these assumed results show that studying online was better in the written exam. In the practical evaluation, when they go to the hospital, the performance of the students of the second group, they study in the hospital, was slightly better than the online group. Our results show the potential of the online teaching in the clinical subject. So this one concluding sentence. We therefore, this is our recommendation, recommend a hybrid approach in teaching clinical subjects, where the students can rely on the online classes and have minimal hospital attendance. So this is a whole introduction where we provide background, then we focus on our problem, then define the problem, the action, and the outcome, then we came up with a conclusion. Okay. The results and discussion. I will try to be fast in the next. We have still like 15 slides, but we'll go through them as fast as possible. So the results section. This is to answer what did you find in your research. Basically, this only thing that you need to write in this section is what did you find, not how you find it, because how you find it is in the method. And you don't also discuss the meaning of this. No interpretation, no bias, only descriptive and analytical writing where you can describe what you found, what you have found, and just categorize them based on relevance. This usually is broken down into sentences or subsections, small subsections. Each of them represents certain part of the results and certain role of this part in the answer of the question. Usually in the results part, we heavily rely on illustrations, tables, charts, figures, and other types of illustrations, and we cite them. Because if you remember, we said that we have three types of information: the common knowledge, the information, and the results. This one is not referenced, this one is supposed to be referenced, and this one is only supported by your findings. That's why in the results part, we heavily use the illustrations and data. So all the data in this part supposed to be corresponds to the central research question, the most important research question. You still can have second findings. If they are important, you can show them in the results, or you can put them as supporting information in the website of that is shown in the website of the journal. Okay, some quick tips about writing the results section. You need to present all your data without any discussion. So you don't comment on these results, you don't show any bias or interpretation. It is a very important section because basically this what shows your main outcomes. Here, there is important part also important aspect to show that when you split the results from the discussion, it's good because results are supported by the data, but discussion is not supported by the data. Discussion is your point of view. That's why it's persuasive. When you write the discussion, write in the persuasive tone. Because you try to convince me that these results means X, Y, and Z. So people can believe your results, but they can dislike or don't believe or have different opinion compared to your discussion. I don't have time to tell stories, but I will tell a very short story again about the very first publication in my career. We found some findings that contradict a very high-profile publication by the head of Caltech, and it was published in Science and it was highly cited. But what we found contradicts the finding. Actually, it's not contradicting the finding itself; it contradicts the discussion, the interpretation, not the finders. They didn't do any wrong thing, but they, according to the available knowledge at the time when they published their work, this was okay. Their interpretation was okay, but a few years later, when we found what we found, we have different opinions. So we like the results, but we disagree with their interpretation. It created a problem for us because we couldn't publish this paper because it contradicted a very big paper. Currently, everyone in the field knows that we are correct and they are wrong, but we end up publishing in a smaller journal compared to the journal that we can publish in. Sometimes the journal requires the result and discussion to be in one section, and in this case, we need to add here. So we write the discussion and the interpretation, and I'll give a complete example again to certain part of the results, how it's written as results and how it is written as discussion. The figures and tables for here supposed to be very clear because this is the support of your findings. Again, every new statement need to be supported by your data, either a table or a figure or data that you attach to your application or a website that you create to your application. I need to make sure that when I download this text, what you wrote in this statement, I will find something that proves that you are correct. Spend enough time with the figures and the tables. They are very important here in this context, so give them enough time, and perhaps spend some time to learning some software that can help you in making better, more clear, or high resolution figures. Figures are preferred over tables. If you can put the data of this comparison in a figure instead of a table, it will be even better. Again, if you have excessive results that can be removed, you can put them in the supplementary or the supporting information. The discussion section. The discussion section shows the meaning of the results and the value of your results. Results cannot explain itself. You need to explain it by yourself. So what is the meaning of what you have found? You need also in this section to show if your results agree or disagree with previous published work, exactly like the story I just told you in brief. We disagree with this finding, so we need to show that our results are different and they disagree. If there are exceptions or lack of correlation, you need to define this and to show this and to explain why. Don't hide this, because it is very easy for experienced reviewers to find it, and it will be a very good reason for rejecting your work. Your conclusion is supposed to be clear and summarized based on the evidence. Again, you are writing in a persuasive way, so you need to be convincing. And finally, discuss the significance of these results without overselling, without over-claiming. Just your results are good and significant enough. So put this in context. Don't oversell or overestimate your results. So some tips in writing the discussion. After analyzing your data, you need to relate them to other studies. Again, it's about the context. So if you are in agreement with findings by other people, you need to state this. If you are not in agreement with them, you need also to state this. And this is how you show how your results fit in with the existing knowledge. The interpretation needs to be clear and specific for the results, and need to be logical. And clearly state the significance, given its computational, biological, medical, chemical, physical, whatever, biological, or whatever significance, you need to state this clearly. If there is any alternative explanation, usually we tend to have this bias to show that our results are good enough and correctly enough and significant enough, which is fine, but never hide the alternative explanation. This is what exactly happened in this story I told you. They have another explanation which will make the results not very significant and will not be supported by their data. So you just put it under the carpet. No one will see this. Few years later, someone, which is us or group, shows that there are alternative explanations. So it's better if there is an alternative explanation to discuss this and to write why your explanation is better. Also, don't be emotional. We love our results. We love our work. We believe in this work. We put all this effort and all this years of our life in this graduate school. So we love these results, but we need to be professional when we discuss them. And when someone show points of weakness or points of criticism, we need to take this professional. If you have some results that are unexpected or some out of correlation or whatever, you need to find a possible explanation for that. Don't leave this to the readers to find it and come back to bite you with their comments. Avoid redundancy. This is important when draft and discussion sections are separated. You don't repeat the results in the discussion section. You just refer to them in the results section, but don't repeat them. End the discussion with a summary of your principal finding. So this is a message that will be taken from this particular paragraph. So in the paragraph or in the section with this summarizing sentence. Important thing is, if I read the introduction, then I jump to the discussion, I will feel the flow is correct. I'm not missing anything, because the last paragraph in the introduction summarized your findings. Then the discussion explain or interpret your findings. So try to remove the results, read your introduction, then jump to your discussion. If the flow is okay and if you feel that you are not missing anything, then your writing is very good. Okay, one example of a result which will show in this slide, and the discussion of the same results in the next slide. So this was from a publication that we published in 2021 about the vaccination acceptance by people in certain demographic. So here we want to show that there are 29 reasons for refusing to get the vaccine. And we found that about 4,000 of the 40,000 participants in our questionnaire choose a strange option, which we will get the vaccination, but at the same time they choose some of these 29 barriers. So we have to state this as results, not as a discussion. So we say that 4,000 of the participants choose acceptance, but yet they had one or more barriers selected. So one sentence states that there is some strange thing happening or some observation. Of the 29 barriers, we found that the most common response was, I am afraid of the side effects of the vaccine. And 61% from those who selected this option, they selected this barrier. Then in the second one was, not enough time has passed to verify the vaccine safety, which is 55%. Then the vaccine production was rushed. This is 46%. I don't trust the healthcare policies applied in my country, 39%. I don't trust the published results or the companies, this 33%. And we refer the user to figure 4 to see exactly what we are talking about. Here is the barriers, and here is the percentage of people who choose this barrier. We didn't talk about the meaning of this at all. We didn't interpret anything, just we describe what we can see in this video. So it's completely descriptive, but it's analytical because we put them in context. How we wrote this part in the discussion. So among the 29 different reasons for vaccine rejection or hesitancy, the top 2 reasons selected by the responder reflects concerns about safety, while the next 3 reasons were issues about trust. This is consistent with the teacher, which showed high level of distrust and concerns about safety, and we cite some previous work. So here, obviously, we are translating the results into meaningful outcome. So the first two reasons, instead of say what is these reasons, we said that this about safety, and the other three are about distrust. We don't mention the reasons themselves. We mention the meaning of them. Then the three forms of distrust, we start going deeper and discuss the three forms of distrust. 1, 2, and 3 were notably higher among the people from, we go for more, we share this with you so you can read it later, but I think you got the point, and for the interest of time, we'll go to the next section. So the conclusion and the references. What is the conclusion? The conclusion section is where you wrap up your idea and leave the reader with a strong final impression. Actually, it's the take-home message. In this section, you need to, again, you mention the problem that you want to address, summarize the approach to address this problem, and the main findings of your paper. In fact, conclusion, abstract, and the third paragraph of the introduction are very similar in terms of the content. So you need to make sure that you are not repeating yourself. What to write in the conclusion section, I just explained them, so for the interest of time, I will exclude this slide and go to the example of one of the conclusions. Also from this COVID-19 vaccination hesitancy. So here I color-coded this in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different colors. Our results show high COVID-19 vaccination hesitancy among Arab. It was about the demographic here was about the Arab speaking populations either living on the Arab countries, which 23 countries, or worldwide, which is another 121 countries, according to what we found in our paper. So here we show that the hesitancy among Arabs who live in the Arabian region compared to those who live outside is higher. And the concerns with safety and distrust is more. Then we show the main reason for this hesitancy and safety and distrust in the healthcare policies and vaccination. Like it was made very fast, that's why we were distrust. There was some distrust about this. Given that the vaccine is being purchased for the state expenditure, and the high vaccine hesitancy could further compromise the economy of the countries. In addition, so here we are justifying why these results are important. Then we say that there are dynamics that going on the pandemic and the development of the vaccination. Therefore, this kind of study needs to be done again in the future to make sure that we are following up with the community and how they feel towards this vaccination thing. And finally, we leave with the most important message of this research, with the high proportion of the people who are willing to take the vaccine, but they are waiting to make sure that it's not like harmful, and so they are waiting for other people to get the vaccination and to make sure that they are safe, then they can take the vaccine. So it's not really hesitancy, or it's not like they are not rejecting the vaccination, and sometimes they are not accepting the vaccination. That's why we say that the definition of vaccine acceptance or vaccine hesitancy are not clear, and they need to be defined in a better way. And this is usually the way to close conclusion with some forward-looking statement about the field. The references. I think we all know what is the references and what we need to mention here. We need to mention references, or we need to cite references for all the information that we use that someone else have done, unless it's a common knowledge. It helps to avoid plagiarism, because if we write certain information and we input the reference, the reader will assume that this is our finding, which is plagiarism. So when we properly cited the previous research, to avoid plagiarism, and we show the source of information. Again, I stated this a few times, that information is supposed to be stated either to be supported either by references or by your own data. When we talk about citations, there are in-text citations, like when you write the sentence and you add the reference to the end, this is in-text citation. It can be like the number of the reference or the name of the first author and the year. They are different formats. And there's a bibliography, which is the references at the end of the manuscript, which can be also arranged in different ways, and the formats can be different. Previously, we used to do this manually using the word processors, but now you are lucky we have all of these bibliography and reference managers. EndNote is not free. You need to pay for EndNote to be able to use it. Mendeley is free and is very good, excellent, but it was not supported. It doesn't support Google Docs. Google Docs is important because we are now using many projects. We use it as a way to collaboratively write. So when multiple authors can write together in one document concurrently. The problem is how to add references. So we used to use some manual way to have the references until I found Cyweed and ZQZQ. This changed everything. They work inside Google Docs and make the whole thing very easy, so we can write from the beginning to the end on Google Docs or in any shared documents. I created this small illustration to show how this kind of reference managers work. So you make an account in one of these managers and you create a library where you can access through your computer or your smart device and add references to this. You add your previous papers, the papers that you read and you use in your references, just a library of references. Papers, patents, websites, whatever. You add them to this library. On the other hand, you have your manuscript on Google Doc. You can access this manuscript using also a computer or your smart device. The good thing is when both can communicate. So you can add references to your manuscript and you can add references to the libraries from your Google document. And you can do the whole thing using Chrome extensions. So you add the extension of ZQ of Cyweed to Chrome, open your Google document, and you can add and edit your references within your text, like the in-citation, the in-text citation, or write the bibliography with certain format that is recommended by the journal. By this, I would like to acknowledge some people who helped me develop my writing over the years. And if you want to communicate with me, this is a QR code of my LinkedIn, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And by this, I would like to thank you very much for this invitation, and I can take your questions if you have some.
Thank you a lot, Professor Helmi, for your time and for the great presentation with I think a lot of information that will be very beneficial for not only the students attending, but as well the people that will see the recorded video. For Q&A, do you have any Q&A? Yeah, I will add it. Actually, I have also a bunch of Q&A, and I think it might be beneficial for the attendees. So,
Sure, please go on.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Muhammad, for this great lecture. And I'd like to ask about the. So can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. To what extent we can rely on ChatGPT in scientific writing? Do you think that's valid or just?
Okay, actually, I'm writing a manuscript now about this, about the ethics behind this. ChatGPT and other language models are part of the life. We will not be able to escape this, and people will use it anyways. So it is better to have some rules. And I guess the rule of thumb is you be honest and transparent. When you use ChatGPT or any other language model, you need to state this, that you use it, because you use it anyways. So maybe part of the process. We use these reference managers. I just show them, and they make our life easy. So I don't see any problem in using. We use Grammarly and other tools to help us rephrase our sentence and make our writing free of grammar mistakes. So there is no problem for using the ChatGPT or similar tools, but it is only important that we do this in an ethical way, so we don't write the whole paper using it. Actually, it's not possible because it will be easy to find this out. Also, ChatGPT 3, the one is based on the GPT-3 model. It provides fake references. In many cases, it was proven that it provides fake references. So don't rely on this until now. I'm not sure about GPT-4. The GPT-4 was just released this week. I didn't try it yet. The training data is huge. It's 500 times the data used for the version 3. So perhaps it will be better in this particular aspect. But yes, we will use it. And we need to be honest when you use it. We need to state where and how much, what is the depth of the usage.
Yeah, I just ask about if we, according to what I understood, that we can even make some usage of this powerful tool, but in referencing, should we put it in the reference, or this sort of helping shouldn't be considered? Actually, I didn't write any paper in my life, so I'm asking from this background.
Okay, I think this is still unclear for many people how we will proceed with ChatGPT. But what I can think about is we need to acknowledge this. Like at least we write in the acknowledgement that ChatGPT was used in editing this manuscript, or gathering some information, or creating a list of, because you can ask them to create a list of tools that use AI to do XYZ. So it will give you the list of 10 or 15 tools. Otherwise, you will spend a few hours collecting them. So this is good. It's like Google. When we search in Google, we'll get the information easier than before. So it's fine. It's fine to use this, but you need to acknowledge this. Perhaps if like the whole table was done using ChatGPT, you can add a footnote that this table was collected with the help of ChatGPT. So far, there is no rules for this, but I think this will be the rule in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Helmi. There is a question from the chat. You mentioned that we shouldn't explain why we choose one method over another in the methods section. However, the discussion section is only focused on explaining the results rather than the methods. So where should we justify our methods? And
Yes.
what is the proper tense to use in the introduction, results, discussion, and conclusion?
Okay.
So I think it's 2 questions as well.
For the first question, yes, we will justify the usage of this particular method over the other method in the discussion when we discuss the results of this method, the result that we obtain using this method. So we will write that we obtain this using this algorithm, which we used because 1, 2, and 3, which makes it better than the other algorithm that has this 1, 2, and 3 negative things compared to this one. So it will be written in the discussion. But when we discuss the result that we got using this method.
And regarding the tense, is it
The tense? Okay.
in introduction, results? I think it's all
Most of
the
cases
parts.
we
Yeah.
use, past tense, because we found and we obtained, we got this result. So it's all, most probably will be in the past.
Mhm.
And our results show, only when we see our results show, we are using
Present.
present. Yes, like in most probably we are talking about the past.
Okay. Any questions from people attending? So yeah, there is a question here.
Hello, supervisor. My question. Can you? Okay. Hello, professor. My question is, the biology tools you mentioned, such as EndNotes or other 3, are these do they support LaTeX, or they just for Word? And is there any convenient tool for the LaTeX writing papers to add the reference?
Well,
Dr. Helmi, can you repeat the question, because not everybody here?
okay, she is asking if the reference managers are working with LaTeX. Well, I'm not using LaTex in my work, to be honest, but I know there is some issues. I saw a tool that was developed by one of the students at the University of Toronto, Omar Wagi, before he joined Cambridge for his PhD. So Omar developed this method because he was using LaTeX, but he has this problem. So what he developed in this tool is when you reference something, you put the PubMed ID or the handler of this particular paper. Then you copy your text to this the whole text to his tool, and it will convert this to citation. But I cannot answer this question about LaTeX because I'm not using it in my workflow. I use word processors like Word and Google Doc.
Any questions? So I have a question regarding. I think most of the students here are thesis based, so we are working on certain thesis, which might have a certain introduction, which will be a similar introduction, and we supposed to be publishing maybe 3 to 4 papers. So how to avoid copying introduction in the papers, or is it okay and fine to use the same introduction?
Well, I don't know about your university rules, but in our university,
No, I mean in publication. And if I'm submitting to a journal and I have like 2 papers, I'm working on the same idea, but maybe 2 different stages, and I have the same introduction. What shall I do?
No, it can't be the same introduction. If there are 2 papers, it can't be the same introduction. To rephrase, actually, the part will be shared, but you can't use the same wording. So you need to rephrase the shared part. Mm-hmm. Because both of them are in the same idea, but in different stages. So perhaps the background will be the same, but the focus will be different.
Okay. And yeah.
So paragraph number 1, the content will be the same, but you can't use the same exact words. So you need to rephrase this or to rewrite it. Then the focus will be different because you are talking about two different stages, and paragraph C will be different because you are talking about the particular findings you find from each of them. So the only shared part will be the background, I guess. And yes, you can, the content can be the same, but the wording cannot be the same.
So part of our work will be published in either conferences or journal papers. Is there any rules of, again, using the same wording in conference and journal?
In general, you can't. In general, you can't. You need to avoid this. So you need to develop this skill of rewriting and rephrasing your writing. Conferences in the engineering and technology are important. Conferences in biology and medicine are not so important in terms of publication. This also is relevant to your background or your domain. In our case, in biomedicine, we now in the biomedical field, we publish abstracts in the conferences, not papers.
Okay.
Because papers is like waste of time to publish papers and waste of like novelty to make your paper exposed in the conference, while it has no value in terms of finishing your degree or get the promotion or anything. So we prefer journals, while in engineering and in technology, they love these IEEE conferences and they publish them and they value these conferences. So again, you need to know the guidelines for your domain, follow them, but the rule of thumb, you can't use the same wording because now the plagiarism check softwares are very good, and this will increase the percentage of shared text between your text and the published text, and you don't need this. So the habit of rephrasing and rewriting the sections of your publication is important.
Okay, so this will bring us to another question. How can we decide, like, if I have a certain idea on for my project, how can I decide how many papers that I can produce out of this idea? Like, is there any rule of thumb that we can rely on? Okay, we can make it 2 or 3. Like, how to assure that each paper will have its own novelty?
Okay. I think I stated a few times during the presentation that the publication is supposed to be a story. So you need to tell a story from start to end. So I remember when I gave this course the first time, I told the students this incident about one of our younger fellows in the group. I was discussing with our PI, and he said, he told me about her results. So I said, okay, very good. When she start writing her paper, he said she has results, but she doesn't have a story. Once she has a story, she will start writing. So once you have a story, you can tell from your results, you have a paper. It can be extended, so you have multiple stories within a bigger story to publish a bigger paper in a higher impact journal. If you see the papers published in Cell, especially in Cell, in this journal you will find the papers are so long and they have supplementary information that is enough for 2 or 3 papers. But to get to this level of journals, you need to show all this information in one paper only. But you can divide this into 2 or 3 papers, and you can publish them in smaller journals, good journals also, but not like Cell. So this is thing that you decide with your supervisor, and you will be also able to decide by reading. If you are reading enough, you will be able to see if what you have now is enough for one story, or is still less, or it's good enough to be split into two stories. Or perhaps if I want to split this into 2 stories, I need to do a little bit more of work, like one more experiment here or one more analysis there. But I will get 2 papers instead of 1.
Okay. Thank you a lot, Dr. Helmi, for your time and for answering our question. And yeah, hopefully we can meet in person for upcoming events.
I hope so.